This segment is on the philosophy of using skin and hair care products and what they can and can't do for you. My first advice is to avoid cosmetics. And when I mean cosmetics, I mean skin care, hair care, lotions, potions, colors, everything else. In short, I'm telling you, avoid cosmetics, save your money, save your face, and maybe even save your life. And certainly, you might save your health from being severely damaged, because in products like this, they're loaded with many potentially harmful and toxic ingredients, and yes, some of them are cancer-causing. So much so that over a period of time, we accumulate a lot of them in our bodies if we use it. But we all have the desire to look better, and in doing so, we use products that we think we can trust in, but in reality, if you look at the ingredients and the science behind them, you really wonder why they're here. Well, why are they here? The reason is that there are so many thousands of different types of ingredients that are used in personal care products that in 1967, the Food and Drug Administration here in the United States said, there's too many to test, so everything that's been used up to this date is automatically approved. They're grandfathered in without testing. So about 15 years later, 1982, typical of the government, they hadn't got around to it yet, so they grandfathered them in again. So here we have thousands and thousands of ingredients that have been used for a long time, and they're grandfathered in to be used in personal care products. And so the obvious question might be, well, we're going to use personal care products. We want to do something about wrinkles, don't we? We're going to shampoo our hair, and we're going to clean our bodies, and we're going to brush our teeth. And if these products have large amounts of potentially harmful ingredients, what are we going to do? We've got to do this. The answer is SISEL is providing products that don't have any of these potentially harmful ingredients in them. And if we do find one, we quickly remove it. As soon as science shows anything, we remove it quickly from the product. So our philosophy is really avoid cosmetics, save your money and save your face, but put treatments and lotions on your skin that have got powerful but safe, natural, biologically available ingredients that can really work with the skin. So if these ingredients are so potentially harmful, why can't we remove them from products? Well, as simple as looking at cigarettes. We know how dangerous smoking is, and yet we can't get rid of cigarettes. It's simply because the lobby is so massive, because there's so much money involved with this. But yet most of us don't smoke, do we? And yet we can't get rid of cigarettes, the greatest health hazard that we have in our society. But how many of us don't bathe or shampoo our hair or brush our teeth? You see, we're all using those products. So in comparison, the personal care lobby is massive in comparison to smoking. As a consequence, there's no great movement and a great opposition to removing these ingredients from formulations, because those formulas are established and companies are in the business of selling products. Of course, this is my opinion, but I believe this is the way that it really operates. With SISEL, we have a mission that we follow, and it's a whole different theme. And that is that we won't use any potentially harmful ingredient in any product that we manufacture. And if we do find that science has discovered one, we'll remove it immediately. And as a consequence, we say the best thing about our products is what's not in them. But what is in products? Well, I want to tell you there's not as much as what you think they are, even if they're very expensive. Usually the cap on the bottle costs more than what's in it. There was a researcher a few years ago that wrote an article in a trade magazine, the kind that scientists like myself and manufacturers read, and he talked about one of the large soap manufacturing giants buying out one of the very big cosmetic companies and entering into it. And he titled the article it was called Culture Shock. He says they're in for a big shock because they're used to making dishwashing detergents that takes the grease away from dishes, and their laundry soap gets clothes whiter, and these are things you can see. But then he drilled right down to it, and he says, but the product benefits in cosmetics are psychic rather than rational. And what does that mean? That means if you think they're working, it's only that you think they're working. There isn't rational benefits from them. And then he went on and said, in terms of ingredients and formulation, there's little real difference between one brand and another. Did you catch that? Does that mean the cheapest product you can buy at Walmart or Kmart and the most expensive product that you can buy in the most posh department store are about the same? That's what he's saying. And we found that to pretty well be true in the research that we have been doing, because normally the cap on the bottle costs more than what's in it. The product formulation often can be the cheapest part of it. Even the label can cost more than the formulation. And many of the companies that make personal care products make them for hundreds of other companies, and you may have exactly the same formulation in one brand that sells for $50 and another that sells for $5, and it can be the same formula. Different packaging, different marketing. The difference is the marketing, not the ingredients that are in it. But in making personal care products, we say to everyone, the best thing about our products is what's not in them. But if we have very clean products that don't have any of these potentially harmful ingredients, then what can you put in a product to make it really work? Well, I'll tell you, science, the total world knowledge in biochemistry doubles every 5 years. Well, I've been in this business about 30 years, so if you take a look at it doubled in 5 years and doubled that again in 5 and again in 5 and again in 5, you get down 30 years. How much knowledge do you think is accumulated in the world of biochemistry in the last 30 years? Enormous, massive amounts of it. And that's what our mission is, to research the research, to find the most powerful ingredients in nature, to bring them out and to use them in the concentration that was used in the studies so that we can maximize the effects. Now, years ago, as an example, I found an ingredient used by a skincare company, and it had just been discovered, and I went to the manufacturer and I said, I want to get it because it worked on the level to, even though your skin is damaged and your skin gets damaged from ultraviolet light, this ingredient would go in and would support the skin system to repair itself if you got it on the skin quick enough. And I said, wow, that is a great discovery, and the science is there. I want to put it in a formulation. And so I started using it in my products, and the representative came in and he said, it was a very expensive ingredient. And he says, you know, you're using a lot more than this big cosmetic company is. And I said, how can that be? They're a multi-billion-dollar international company, and we're not. He says, it's real easy. He says it takes 20,000 parts per million of the ingredient up to 50,000 parts per million to really be effective. You're using 50,000 parts per million, and they use 4. Isn't that a dramatic statement? They use 4, and it takes 20,000 to work, and we use 50,000 because that gives the maximum effect. That's the power of the skincare products we have. But what are the harmful ingredients that we have in skincare products that you want to avoid? It's real easy because now you can read your label. And here's a few hints for what to look for. Look for anything that has the large capital letter E, unless it was vitamin E, like PEG. Anything that has that in is ethoxylated, and in the process of ethoxylation, you don't need to know all of this, but ethoxylation creates dioxins. Dioxins are potential cancer-causing agents and serious ones, and they're also estrogen mimics. In other words, they act like estrogen. And so they can have a profound effect on women, and even science is now showing that they can affect the developing fetus in the womb. So if you find an ethoxylated product, my advice was that the potential harm from it, if dioxins are created in the manufacturing of it, are present, that you could run a significant enough health risk that you would probably want to avoid it. But there's other ingredients too. There's bisphenol A. You've perhaps heard about that in plastics, or phthalates. They're very serious carcinogens, and also endocrine disruptors. They disrupt your endocrine system, and they act like estrogen mimics too. Unfortunately, because of these products coming into our environment, there's been some tremendous changes that are happening to us because of it. I don't know if you've heard or not, but sperm count is way down in man. In fact, in 1950, the sperm count in 1 milliliter of fluid was about 100,000. Now scientists say on the average it's about 5,000. Can you imagine that 50, 60 years since that period it's gone from 100,000 to 5,000? In fact, as Dr. John Lee says, the rate that it's declined, that it's very possible in this century the last man may be born that will be able to father a child. Well, that's a pretty dramatic statement, but whatever it is, those products are affecting the development of the male fetus within the womb and all up through puberty. You have to remember that when children are developing from the fetus through adolescence up through the puberty, all of these systems are developing, especially the brain, and they're very, very vulnerable to attack. Certainly we're vulnerable to attack as adults, but children are even more vulnerable because of all of the new cells that are being produced and growing. So estrogen mimics and endocrine disruptors have a tremendous effect upon the brain. And with SISEL, we've taken a look at these ingredients and we avoid all of them. And here's some of the others that we suggest that you avoid. Anything that has PEG, anything that has the word laureth in it because it's ethoxylated. anything that has an amine complex with it, because it can form nitrosamines, which are potential carcinogens. Anything that has sodium lauryl sulfate in it, or sodium laurous sulfate. Sodium lauryl sulfate has a significant potential to damage all kinds of organs, because and it's a common ingredient. You'll see it in hair shampoos and even bubble baths and all kinds of products we use every day for cleaning the face and cleaning your dishes. But you know what? It's engine degreaser. I used to have an industrial chemical manufacturing company, and we made engine degreaser and garage floor cleaner out of it, because it is so aggressive on grease and oils and that. And so when it's on your skin, it can literally strip the lipids or denature proteins within the skin itself, making your skin more susceptible to environmental attack. And even beyond that, it can get into the blood system. In fact, this sodium lauryl sulfate is commonly used in laboratories all over the world as the common denominator to do things like irritate skin. So they'll say, well, we used 0.5% of sodium lauryl sulfate, and we put it in an aqueous solution, left it on the skin for 2 minutes, removed it. They know that that percent of sodium lauryl sulfate in that solution left for that long will do a certain amount of damage, that every laboratory in the world can now duplicate those results, because it's the standard, it's the gold standard for irritating the skin. But yet in hair shampoos, you can see 10 or 15% of it very commonly in a hair shampoo or a facial cleanser or all kinds of things like that. It really shocked me, because I saw in the Wall Street Journal an article that was titled, "Good News for Children Who Hate Baths." And they talked about the potential of sodium lauryl sulfate keeping children's eyes from developing properly, and also that it might cause cataracts in adults. And it's all because the tissues are so delicate when they're growing, and sodium lauryl sulfate is such an aggressive compound when got on the skin, or it's possible that it can even be systemic and flow throughout the entire body, even into the brain. Some studies are showing that it is getting into the brain, and it has an enormous capacity to deteriorate. If you wonder why they use it, it's because it generates a lot of foam, it's very inexpensive, and people will say that are in defense of it with their products, well, it's made out of coconut soap. It's very safe. It's made out of coconut soap. But you know, coconut soap is okay by itself, but what they do is they take this coconut oil and they react it with battery acid, sulfuric acid. And so that harsh reaction takes place, and then they react it with lye, which is on the other end of the pH scale. pH scale goes from 1 to 14. Sulfuric acid is 1, lye is 14, and they react the coconut oil with that and come up with sodium lauryl sulfate. No wonder it's so aggressive. But it's been used for a long time because it's cheap, inexpensive, and you can put a little bit of it in some shampoo or something like that and put plain old table salt in it, and it thickens right up. So it's a formulator's dream if they want to make products like that, because it generates a lot of foam, it's very cheap and inexpensive to use, and you can thicken it with salt so it looks thick and rich. In reality, what is it? It's cheap, thin, inexpensive, potentially harmful, corrosive, can affect the skin, can get into the system, might affect children's eyes, even adults' eyes. All of that in a common everyday ingredient that we could be using every single day. So my advice, because of the potential harm that this molecule might have, is to avoid it. And as we said in the beginning, avoid cosmetics, save your money, save your face. But since we want to brush our teeth, and it can be in toothpaste, and since we want to shampoo our hair, there has to be alternatives for it. And at SISEL, we have found those powerful ingredients that don't do any harm, that are very safe to use, that rinse off, and they don't damage the tissues and the structures. In fact, I've actually seen hair shafts under a microscope of where it just looks like a shredded pineapple, all coming, we believe, because of the types of cleansing agents that are used in it. Whereas if you go with one that doesn't aggressively attack the keratin, then they're all folded in neatly and the hair remains intact. In addition, there's other studies. There's one out of the University of Helsinki that showed the common ingredient used in almost every single product we use, sodium lauryl sulfate, had an effect on hair growth. And it actually was inhibiting hair growth. So if you wonder why your hair is not growing as fast as it used to, maybe that's the answer. But in addition, of course, it can form potentially harmful dioxins, carcinogens, estrogen mimics, just in the process of making it. So an ingredient you think that was really safe and nice because it's used in so many different products has a tremendous potential for harm. And so at SISEL, we don't use any of those kinds of ingredients. Now there's a number of others that you can look at, and just for the sake of time, I'll tell you what they are. Take a look at your tube of toothpaste. It tells you if you ingest, or especially children ingest more than the size of a pea, that you should seek emergency medical help immediately. Call a poison control center, because there are children that die every year from eating too much toothpaste because it has a very toxic poison called fluoride in it. I don't recommend fluoride in toothpaste, and there are better ways to harden the teeth than fluoride that are absolutely safe. So we have a powerful compound that we use in ours that we think is absolutely safe. It doesn't have any of those harmful ingredients that can get into the system, as with other products. There are many potentially harmful ingredients in personal care products. In fact, as the Food and Drug Administration says, there's about 900 of them. 150 are considered to be quite serious. And so in evaluating products, we don't want to use any of those, and we want to tell our distributors to avoid them. And we're bringing out a pamphlet that you'll be able to get, that you can read what the ingredients are, and in a very quick version see what the potentially harmful effects of them are. For instance, parabens in skincare products are a very serious endocrine disruptor, and a study just came out where it showed of 24 women that have breast cancer, 22 of them had parabens right within the cancer cells themselves. So we've eliminated all the parabens in our skincare products. Do they cause cancer? We don't know, but we think with that kind of information we should remove them from our product. There's another product or an ingredient that's used in many formulas. It's called propylene glycol. Propylene glycol, people will say it's a humectant that are in the skincare industry, but in reality, if you go to the manufacturers, they will tell you what it is. It's used in paint and varnishes. It's actually brake fluid. It's industrial antifreeze. A little bit is used in cosmetics because it holds the moisture and gives it kind of a greasy film or feel with it, so that it will blend moisture, and it actually emulsifies some water-soluble and oil-soluble ingredients together. But its real role, I think, is in the brakes of your car and in industrial antifreeze, not on your skin, because there are some studies that show that it might cause kidney damage and liver abnormalities. And that study was done on animals, so I mean, who really wants to take the risk? And when it's used in personal care products, you put large amounts of it on your skin. So I think the best thing to do is to remove an ingredient like that. There are many others that the list goes on, but you can get into things like, even in skincare, like hyaluronic acid, which a lot of companies use, collagen, and even elastin. And you say, well, what's wrong with those? They're really not harmful in and of itself, but when you put them in a skincare product, they put large films over the skin. They're not small molecules, they're huge molecules. And so to improve the moisturization of skin or a wrinkle, they simply hold the moisture in that the skin is a living, breathing organ trying to get rid of. So you trap in the moisture, but also the toxins, the carbon dioxide that's trying to get out. And as a result, we think that you're making the skin very unhealthy by doing that. So while they might not be potentially harmful from a toxin standpoint, we think they're potentially harmful to your skin because they could be inhibiting the biology of your skin. Likewise, a lot of the foundations that are out in the market, they use ingredients like kaolin or bentonite. It's the foundation that's used to give you that smooth clay type look on your skin, and that's exactly what it is. In fact, if you ever watch those big forest fires that are going on and you see these bombers come in and they dump this load of material, oftentimes it's a pink color or a brown, they're called bentonite bombers, and what they're doing is they have a slurry mixed up with water and bentonite, and it comes in, and as it goes over the flames, it suffocates it. It keeps the moisture out. Well, because of that, we don't think it has a place on the skin, because your skin is a living, breathing organ, and if you keep the oxygen out, then you're keeping the toxins and waste in. Does that really make sense? We don't think so. So we go far beyond the potentially harmful ingredients that are toxic, that are potentially cancer-causing, that are endocrine disruptors, that are estrogen mimics, and we try to make skincare, treat skin and hair care the way that it should be, like a living, breathing organ. You know, there's some, unfortunately, the personal care products are having a tremendous amount of damage on our environment. In fact, in some river systems, actually, the fish are becoming extinct, and it's because they're downstream where the effluent from the cities are dumping into the river. And while they might be chlorinated and kill all the microorganisms, the residue from the shampoos and the toothpaste and the laundry detergents are dumping in the river. And because they have so many estrogen mimics in them, scientists are saying the male fish no longer know when it's time to spawn. So the fish are becoming extinct because of it. Well, terrible as that sounds, the same scientists or other scientists are saying that the shampoo that women are using is actually affecting the development of the fetus within the womb, especially if it's a male child. So those are lots of things to think about, and at SISEL we think about them very seriously because we believe we have a moral obligation not to use ingredients in our formulation that have been shown to have these kinds of properties, and we don't. So when I said save your money, save your face, avoid cosmetics, that's exactly what I believe. And we follow that mission in everything that we do. So pick up a line of SISEL skincare products, and what you'll find is the best thing about them is what's not in them, but then you'll find them jam-packed with very powerful, highly advanced ingredients that studies are showing they have a profound effect on aged skin, or skin that you don't want to age, or to regenerate, or to really do something about wrinkles like no product in the world can. We believe in the English saying, and a lot of people have heard it, that the proof is in the pudding. That's not the saying. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. That's what the saying is. So in SISEL hair and skincare products, we don't put the harmful ingredients in, and we just load it with the powerful, effective ones that science has found that really works. We use them, we use a lot of kinds of them, and we use them in great concentration so that the results that we give to you are the ones that you're looking for. So in SISEL, you can have confidence in our products. They're by far the best line in the entire world, we believe. We don't think anything can come close to it because of the superior technology that we use and the technology that we don't use.